All right, Chris Mosier here, podcasting director here at Progress, Texas. We have been doing a lot of road work lately in our continuing exploration of rural Texas, the progressives and Democrats who are active there and those who are waiting to be mobilized there. We decided to follow new Texas Democratic Party Chair Kendall Scudder out to lovely Kerrville, Texas. Population just under 25,000 earlier this week for a town hall that he held as part of an ongoing tour that he's putting on across every corner of Texas. Thanks to the Kerr County Democratic Party for having us for their event, which was quite well attended and a lot of fun. And here we go.
All right, Kendall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Kerrville, for coming out on a Monday afternoon. I was a little worried, I have to tell you. When I was coming into making our schedule, I was like, I just don't know if anybody's going to show up on a Monday afternoon, but we sure can give it a shot, and y'all proved me wrong, so eternally grateful. For those of you I haven't had a chance to meet, my name's Kendall Scudder. I grew up on a Purple Hole pea farm in East Texas with lesbian mamas, and that's how you know that I know how to fight. When I was 12 years old, Republicans were trying to take kids like me out of our homes and put us in foster care, so I started knocking on doors. And for the last 23 years, I've served on every level of party leadership, from precinct chair all the way up to now being elected as the state chair of the Texas Democratic Party. We just finished 2 months, so I'm going into my 3rd month. And I know it's a little surprising, but I haven't fixed it all yet. We're working on it. I also, because I grew up in a barn, I have a tendency to be a little foul-mouthed, so forgive me for that. Also, that's a warning for Chris, because every time I come on the Progress Texas podcast, they always have to rate it explicit. So sorry for that.
Okay.
It's just how it is. Look, when I ran for the Texas Democratic Party chairmanship, I ran from the grassroots. I'm not a part of the Austin establishment or the DC establishment. I've just been a guy that's working his ass off in one of the reddest parts of this state. And I felt disrespected and ignored by my party, and like a lot of people I think have around the state. And so it's a new day in the Texas Democratic Party. And what it means is that you now have a 35-year-old from the Progressive Caucus leading the charge here, making me the only millennial in the country leading a major party. It's not like I'm a child. I'm 35. It's kind of weird to even say that, but such is the state of politics these days. So what does it mean? Well, it means a couple of things. Number one, it means that we're not just taking punches anymore. We're going to throw them too. It means that we're going to show up in every corner of this state, whether it's El Paso or Texarkana, Amarillo, Kerrville, or Brownsville. We have to start walking in the door to earn people's votes. It's kind of wild to me that we haven't. I want to talk to you, before we start talking about what we kind of want to do, I want to talk to you about the state of the situation we're in right now. You know it's bleak just in the state of the national politics. So let's talk about it on a state level. Raise your hand if you think that the Texas Democratic Party and the Democratic Party writ large's messaging over the last election cycle or two has just been on point. Okay. What do we think the problem is? Well, young person disagrees. Young person disagrees. What do we think the problem? Can we put our finger on it?
Apathy.
Do what?
Apathy.
Apathy.
Trying to be too nice.
Trying to be too nice.
Out of touch.
Out of touch. I think there's a little bit. What was that? I'm sorry, Jerry?
Finances.
Oh, finances are always a problem. That's for sure. I think it's a little bit of all of these. I'm sorry?
Involvement.
Yeah, and engagement, right? Involvement, engagement. To me, here's what I think happened. When I grew up in East Texas and I was a little boy, my mama had me when she was a teenager. She was not politically involved. But regardless, I asked her, because I was watching the news, and what's a Democrat, Republican? I don't know what that is. What's the difference? And she says, well, Democrats are for the people, Republicans are for rich folks and corporations. Like, that's always kind of who we were. Especially in East Texas, where it used to be a blue wall, because we were the party of the little people. I think Hill Country can relate. Somewhere along the lines, we've lost the definition of who we are. I think it was in 2016, probably a little before that, but around 2016 when Donald Trump won, we are patriots who love this country, and we were terrified of what he was going to do to it and how he was going to dismantle it. And so we built ourselves around the idea that we were going to preserve these institutions. But what we lost track of was that those institutions have not served working people well. Those institutions have not been good to poor guys. Right now, we have a rigged economy that only works for the people at the top, and the rest of us down here on the bottom are left groveling for crumbs. We can't afford to pay our rent that we have to pay because we can't afford a home that we can't afford because of interest rates being too high. Even if we could, we couldn't afford to pay the insurance on that home. We can't even afford to put dance shoes on our kids anymore. And just recently, the Trump administration passed a budget that is the largest redistribution of wealth that we have seen from the bottom to the top. It's not getting any better for us. Billionaires are controlling our government and leaving all of us stranded at the bottom. I can't think of a time in American history where the working men and women needed stronger champions. And to me, as we move forward on our messaging, it's crucial that we define ourselves and make sure that our brand is synonymous with economic justice. If we have failed to do that, I think that we failed to do our jobs. We have a lot of people in the coalition of our party. They all have very different interests. They range from Henry Cuellar to Jasmine Crockett, and I love all my Democrats equally, okay? But what I'll say is there's the common moral thread that runs through all of them. Whether you're black or you're white or you're gay or you're straight or wherever you're at, we all pay bills. And we're all sick and tired of having billionaire boots on our necks. That's how I think we reframe moving forward on this messaging piece. But just kind of getting back to the original question, we've been off message and we've lost the branding of who we are as a party. Everyone should be able to answer the same way that my mama did when I was a little boy, a person who didn't even vote. When she was asked what the difference between a Democrat and a Republican is, well, Democrats for people and Republicans for rich people and corporations. That's what we have to get back to, number one. Number two, there's 9,000 precincts in the state of Texas. That means theoretically, we should have 9,000 precinct chairs, right? How many precinct chairs do you think we have in the state of Texas? You said, I'm sorry? 12? A couple more than that. 4,500, roughly. Half of precinct chairs in the state of Texas are vacant. Draw a line down the center of the state. Half of it isn't getting worked. Half of it, we aren't knocking on doors. We aren't shaking hands, looking people in the eye, telling them what we stand for. That's a problem. There's 254 counties in the state. 55 don't have a county chair. So 55, more than 20% of Texas, a fifth of it, doesn't even have a Democratic Party there. Okay? So, we aren't talking about the issues that are important to people. And we're certainly not organizing. I think it shows that we're not focusing on that. Also, I think it was pointed out earlier, we haven't been showing up. I mean, how many candidates came through Kerrville last year? Right. I mean, as a party, in order to show people that we care about them, we have to be showing up. It doesn't mean that I have to be at all places at all times. There's a lot of elected Democrats in this state where we need to be operating like we're on a team together, showing up in every corner of this state. It's not just about showing up physically. It's also about showing up where people consume their news. Because we have been a risk-adverse party that operates off of a script because we don't want to offend people. We don't want to make mistakes. And we don't show up places that aren't always friendly to us. Why are we so afraid to go on right-wing media? We're right. I mean, you would think it would be the easiest place to go. I went on a right-wing radio show about 3 weeks ago, and the host said, for 10 years I've run this show, and I've been inviting Democrats to come on. You're the first Democrat to accept my invite to come on. What that means is that for 10 years, he had dedicated listenership, long enough to keep him on for 10 years. And not once did they hear a perspective from the Democrats. We didn't show up. So, we're not showing up. We're not talking about the things that are important to people. We're not organizing to make sure we have boots on the ground to go into them. Can someone explain to me why we're surprised we're losing elections? Right? Nowhere to go but up, guys. We have a lot of work to do. And I'm sorry, but this old strategy where we just raise, money to pay consultants and lock our candidates in the room to beg for money and then pay a bunch of Austin and DC consultants to lose elections. They don't particularly care that we lose. They get paid either way. That's got to stop. Because the way we flip Texas is people, grassroots across this state, replicating. Who's old enough to remember the 82 coordinated campaign? One person in the room is old enough to remember the 82 coordinated campaign. In Texas, we had an 82 coordinated campaign that had the likes of Ann Richards, Lloyd Benson, Jim Hightower, Gary Morrow. Some of these great Texas icons that came from all over the state, had very different politics, but they were all in a team, moving in the same direction to accomplish the same goal. We've got to get back to that where we're showing up, building a grassroots army in every corner of this state. That's how I think we start to win elections. It's not going to be an easy feat, and it's not going to happen overnight. I inherited a bit of a mess, as I'm sure you can imagine. And we're working really hard right now to try to pull it out. Just to frame this before I start taking questions. I'm a volunteer. Party officials are volunteers. Myself, your county chairwoman, we don't get paid. I don't even get my travel reimbursed. I got a wife that's 7 months pregnant sitting at home, and she makes me lists of things to get off the top shelf so that when I get home at 1 a.m., I can pull them all down for them. And then when she wakes up alone in the morning, she can get them. So I'm just saying, everybody's doing the best they can with what they got. But that being said, if we don't get the finances of our party put into place so we can operate a professional organization, because no organization operates like this, right? We can be honest. We should be restoring faith in our organization so we can build a grassroots donor army in this state. There's frame of reference. There's 6 million people that voted for Joe Biden in 2020, 5 million that voted for Kamala Harris. How many people do you think give monthly to the Texas Democratic Party? Shoot me some numbers.
10%.
So 10% of that would be about 600,000 people, about 500,000 people. The correct answer is 2,000. Okay? I'm not saying that to coax money out of people today. I'm telling you that so you understand the state of where we are. And because we've got to start being honest with people if we want to grow and move forward. And until I can instill some confidence in our party where you know that giving that money matters, and until we start building that grassroots army where people are helping to fund it, then we're in a whole lot of trouble. And I don't think that we're going to be able to dig out. And so that's part of what me going around is about, is I want to be honest with people. I want to answer whatever questions you have. I want to give you whatever clarity I can, because that's what team members do. We're all on a team, moving in the same direction. I don't think that we say that enough, and it's important that we always remember that. I've noticed that Democrats can be very hard on Democrats. And sometimes I understand it's very frustrating, and sometimes it can be merited. But we should all be thinking about how we help support each other in the movements and the works that we're doing so that we can get good things done for the people of Texas. So with that being said, I want to open up and answer whatever questions you got. I'll keep it going as long as you let me, but I imagine people usually will start to glaze over if I go more than about 30 minutes on it. But I'll let your looks on your faces determine that. So what do we got, y'all? Madam Chair.
So what is TDP going to do to support rural counties? Because we're kind of sick of seeing all the resources going to the urban areas.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to push back a little bit. There haven't been a lot of resources going to urban areas. There haven't been resources going anywhere because there haven't been resources. Okay. But point taken, as somebody who's done most of his transformative organizing in East Texas, I get it. I've been a member of the non-urban rural caucus for 20 years. There's just, okay, for those of you who don't know me, I'm very honest. And sometimes it's going to be answers you don't like, but that's how you level with folks and set it up. There's just not a world where we're going to be passing out checks because I just don't see it. Until our budget gets somewhere around $50 to $75 million a cycle, we're going to have a hard time being able to do that because the state party has a lot of functionality that a lot of people don't know. Okay. So let me talk to you a little bit about what some of that is, and then I'll come back to this question. What does the Texas Democratic Party do? Well, we run the voter file and all the data systems for the state and for every candidate in the state, okay? So we employ data scientists who build scoring modules, and we help them as they're cutting turf, pulling lists, doing what they can to process that system. That's a thing that we uniquely can do. We run voter protection programs for the entire state. We're uniquely able to turn away Republicans and not help them cure ballots and only help Democrats. So we do that. We help Democrats make sure that they're able to cast ballots if there are issues there. So we employ attorneys to try to get that accomplished. We are a compliance mechanism as a party, which means that we have joint fundraising agreements. I'm not going to get super in the weeds with all that because it's really boring, but we have agreements with candidates so that we can help do money pass-throughs whenever they have caps on contributions. We run an indicia program to cut all the costs of their mail as they operate. We have to make sure we're tracking all of that. A lot of what we do is not super, and all of our primary administration, in addition to the comms stuff that you kind of see out and around. So a lot of what we do isn't super sexy. And so as a result, people kind of write us off until they get to a point where there were things on the organizing front or the messaging front that they wanted to see. That they don't always understand that that's not always legally the primary function of what the party's supposed to do. We've got to figure out how to do all of that together. So all of that was a set so that I could answer your question, because I don't think everybody fully understood what the party does. What we can do is try to help where we're offsetting in the data space. In urban areas where they have high levels of volunteers and where candidates and campaigns mine a bunch of their votes, those data systems get worked a lot more than they do in rural areas. So when it's time for you to start making phone calls, you're not getting good numbers. When you go knock on doors, you're not getting people that are accurate because your data hasn't been cleaned up yet. And so I think that we can start talking about what does it look like to do large scale organizing efforts that are focused on cleaning up data in rural areas. I think that's number one. Number two, I went to one county. I'm not going to call them out because they're really just doing the best they can do. But when I walked in to talk to them for their coordinated campaign and what they were doing, they printed all their lists at a photo kiosk at a Walgreens because they didn't know how to navigate vendors. They didn't know how to work through print shops and how to find union shops. So we have to create a database where we become a clearinghouse for all of our rural counties to be able to pull their stuff from. You may not have graphic designers that live out in a rural area, or it may be harder to get a hold of them. There may be a technology gap. We should be building all of that stuff in-house so you can just slap your name and logo on them, and then we can run them off through our printers and have them shipped to you. Those things aren't things that cost money. It's just organizing and working together to get it accomplished. Number three, we should be helping with learning how to work that voter file. A lot of times, well-intended people try to go into the voter file to work it. They're not always sure exactly how to get that accomplished. We should be doing better trainings, and that's rural and urban, to try to make sure we're getting that accomplished. Lastly, I want to draw a distinction right quick between rural and mid-sized cities. I do this because I don't think in this state we've done a very good job of that. There's 5 major metros in Texas. There's 40 mid-sized cities with over 100,000 people in them. We treat them like they're flyover country. I mean, they get treated the same way as Loving County with 20 people in it, right? But Beaumont, Texas has more people in it than Richmond, Virginia. And Laredo is twice that size. Amarillo is twice that size. Could you imagine putting a program together to win Virginia and completely ignoring Richmond? It just doesn't happen, okay? So if we are not putting programs at least in those mid-sized cities to get them operating, then we damn sure can't start a conversation about rural. And so I'm just going to level with you. I'm probably not going to lead with a whole lot of kind of the super like Loving County types, as much as I'll try to figure out how do we at least make sure that giant population centers have a party operating, because that doesn't even exist now. That's not saying I'm going to ignore folks, but it is saying like, you eat a whale one bite at a time, and we got eat an elephant one bite at a time. We got a pretty big elephant on our plate. And that's kind of how my head's working as I'm thinking of how to categorize some of it. What else we got? Yes, sir.
Does the DNC provide any financial assistance to candidates in the state of Texas? And do they have to apply for it? Or is it just up to them to figure out who they want.
Yeah, this is a common misconception in politics.
Repeat the question.
The question is, does the DNC provide resources to the party or to the candidates? Is there a place they have to apply to accomplish that? This is a common misconception in politics writ large. And usually people get really angry at me when I give them this answer, but it's me giving them a truthful answer, okay? There is no party, Democrat or Republican in the country, that funds candidates, okay? Party doesn't fund candidates. What you will see sometimes is you'll see candidates listed things. It's because we're a compliance fundraising mechanism where you'll see money pass through in order to accomplish increases in caps and things like that. Our job as a party, we need to learn how to stay in that lane. Our job as a party is we should be turning Democrats out to vote. Okay. So our candidates can spend their time in their operations working on persuasion to pull over other people. But we haven't been successfully accomplishing our lane. There were 1.1 million Democrats who voted in 2020 that did not vote in 2024. When put in focus groups, they'll say things like, and that's just in Texas. When put in focus groups, they'll say things like Democrats don't fight hard enough. They negotiate the things that are important to me. They're not worth showing up to vote for. When asked to compare us to animals, they compare us to slugs and to turtles. What that should tell you is that there's a messaging problem here where our own people don't feel like we're showing up and throwing down for them. And it's time for us to figure out what our lane is. I think our lane is being unapologetically fighting back against banks and billionaires to protect the working men and women of this country. That's our lane. You should feel confidence knowing that if you lock any Democrat in a room with a bunch of bank execs and you have to draft some legislation regulating banks, that Democrat isn't going to sell you out. And the reality is that's not always the case. We have an identity crisis in our party that we have to solve. And you solve it by being authentic, by being honest with people, and by throwing down and fighting for the things that we believe in. If you don't have the levers of power, you get caught trying, okay? So I digress from your question. But my point in that is we have to know what our lane is as a party, and it's to turn out Democrats and to focus on Democrats. So all the dollars that we operate do that. The DNC passes $12,000 a month to the state party to assist in operation of our voter file. So of the $2 billion that went to Kamala Harris, that's what we saw here. So the money we raise comes from us on the phone begging for money, the same way as it does for a candidate. Yes, ma'am.
What is being done to enlist kids like you to the party? We need to have.
I'm just a 35-year-old kid.
We need to have you cloned.
Well, thanks.
And so, what is being done? How can we get people involved?
Well, I got a couple things. Be nice. Be easy. Yeah. The question is, what can we do to get more young people involved? Number one, I'd say be easy on the young folks. Right now, literally, we just had a meeting on a Monday afternoon. They're at work. Okay. I'd also say when you're in your formative years of life, there's a lot of stuff you're trying to get accomplished in politics isn't always the top of the list. I see some activists in the room, but were you activists when you were 20? Yes. Couple of yeses, but a lot of no's. Okay. Also, Vietnam's a different scenario. You may not have been an activist within the party apparatus as much as an activist for a cause, which leads into my next point. What we have to do to create those spaces for young people is to do things that they actually want to engage in. So a lot of these protests, I think, are things that you'll start seeing young people express. And when I've gone to these protests, a lot of times I'll show up and be like, oh, look, fellow youths. Like, that's exciting. So I think creating some stuff like they can be hellraisers, I think is sometimes pretty exciting. But also remember what's really important is that we're getting them to show up to vote. Okay. It's not always that they're active and engaged and all. We'd love for them to be, but as long as we're reaching out to them, getting their contact info, chasing and making sure that they're showing up to vote for us, then we're accomplishing it. And throughout their lives, as they get closer to retirement or they start to understand the stake of government a little bit more, they start to get more involved in a system. And that's true across all generations for the last, 100 years.
But how do we reach out to those young people? That's what we don't know.
Yeah. So young people consume media differently than, particularly this youth generation. The people younger than me even consume it differently than I do. Like, I'm in an Instagram generation. Yeah, our party was really cutting edge on social media back in the Obama years, right? We were known as this social media forward party. And 15 years later, 20 years later, here we are. We're still the Facebook party. But what I think is important is that we are not only acknowledging that they're on social media, but they're also consuming alternative media, podcasts, blogs, things like that. I'll give you an example. Rachel Maddow, I'm sure she's a very nice lady. I've never seen an episode of Rachel Maddow. Okay? Not that personal. I'm sure she's great. I'm a cord cutter. I don't have MSNBC at my house, right? My wife's the same way. And so as people kind of evolve and develop in their media, you have to reach them differently. And I think people within those media circuits have to reach them, right? So you trying to get on TikTok to reach out to them probably will not be super successful. We have to make sure that we're finding influencers within those spaces and elevating people to create influencers in those spaces to reach them there. We're in the background planning stages of trying to accomplish some of that.
And we in Kerr County have an account of Kerr Young Democrats on Facebook. And I'm working that.
Great.
We have a Threads. Do you know what Threads is? Yes. All right, we're on Threads. We are not on TikTok, but we're getting there.
TikTok's tough. It's very time consuming.
Right. We are on Instagram. Go join it. Look for us. I mean, it's Rural Caucus, Young Democrats, Kerr County. We're on all of it.
I'll also tell you,
Yeah.
not everything you have to do has to be activism based. Some of these can be social, and sometimes that's a good way to get new people in. So when I'm trying to accomplish that in whatever space I'm in, maybe we'll do happy hours that are super low pressure. What's really frustrating, whenever I was a young, super young person getting involved, what would be very frustrating is every room I walked into, people were trying to put me to manual labor. Right? And it's fine. I'm happy to do it, but I also left the farm for a reason. Okay. So I'm happy to set your tables up. I'm happy to put your chairs out. I'm happy to go knock on doors. But it did get a little frustrating that it was every room I was walking into, they were trying to put me to manual labor that they didn't all want to do or weren't able to do. And so sometimes you got to make sure that you're giving them other opportunities to be involved, because that's a really quick way to lose young people, is every time they walk in the door, you're giving them really tough grunt work to do. Yes, ma'am.
I had an interesting conversation with a local woman, a business owner, about your age, and it was right after the election, and I was talking about how depressed I was, and anyway, she admitted that she hadn't voted, and she said that she didn't know who to believe. She heard horrible things about both candidates, and she didn't know who to trust. She knew enough to know that Fox News wasn't trustworthy. She said that. It would be helpful for people like me to have really short talking points.
So what I would say, sometimes Democrats are a little too smart for their own good. And every liberal seems to think that if they just had 10 more minutes, they could explain it to you. We got to get back to a point where we realize that folks aren't necessarily voting with their brain, they're voting with their gut, and who in their gut they trust. How many times have you heard people say, that Donald Trump, he's a real asshole, and I don't really like him as a person. I don't really agree with him on X, Y, and Z, but I did feel like when he was in office, he was throwing down and fighting for me. We know that's ridiculous, but you've heard it. Yeah. We have to get to that point as a party, too. We used to be there. We lost it. Where people are saying, I may not agree with Democrats on everything they're doing. I don't really understand that trans thing, and I don't really agree with them on the abortion piece. But when they got elected, they were throwing the fuck down to make sure that I got mine. And I appreciate it, and I'm going to show up and support them. You don't get that overnight. You have to build it over time, just like we lost it over time, okay? And I think it starts with our elected officials. She should have trusted validators, people that she knows she can trust when they're giving her information. A lot of times that's elected officials. They used to be very trusted people. They're not as much anymore. There's some people out there that are really trying to get there. But I think we have to, as a party, start making sure people see that we're straight shooters. And that means sometimes we have to make mistakes. A party where you are constantly on the news saying the exact same thing in parroting talking points and never making a mistake becomes very untrustworthy. Okay. It's go be a human. Go on social. I tell all of our electeds, go on these podcasts and stuff and just be a person. You don't even have to talk about politics as much. Become a trusted validator. That's how I think we start to break through that. And it's going to just have to happen over time. Yes, ma'am.
Well, when you say that, I'm looking at what are we doing as Democrats, as your leadership, to get, you look at Texas, we got a tremendous amount of minorities here. They all need Medicaid. A lot of them need Medicaid. All this stuff is going to happen in this big, beautiful, crappy bill that he's doing. How are we getting the word out to tell these people what's really going on?
How are we getting the word out to tell people what's really going on? I want to give you an example to blow some volume onto your point. Who here knew that in the last legislative session, the Democrats had a tax bill? 1, 2. Did you know that in that tax bill, it would have doubled your homestead exemption? So while Republicans fought to get your homestead exemption raised from $75,000 to $100,000, Democrats were pushing to get it to $200,000 on your homestead exemption. Okay. Why was every Democrat in the state not campaigning on that? What's the point of sending our elected officials into the dome to do this stuff if we're not championing and telling people what they're doing? Also in the Democrat tax bill, they were given a 10% rental rebate to renters because our surplus came from sales tax. They were like, renters should be able to benefit from that too. So when you file your taxes, give us your receipts on your rent. We'll give you 10% back as a relief on your cost of living. Nobody was campaigning on it. We as a party didn't amplify it. Okay. So here's what we do to fix it. We need to start. Our elected officials in Texas never sit in a room together. Okay. We get all the Democrats in a room together and we talk about what were some of the biggest things we were fighting for, what were some of the biggest accomplishments, and we figure out which ones we're running on. And we do it in unison together. Okay. Different communities have different interests, and there's going to be times like when I was running out in East Texas, the issue was public schools. Okay. It didn't even matter if I talked about anything else. Everybody cared about public schools there, right? At least my people did. But there may be parts of the state in suburban or urban areas where they care about some other issues. I don't really know. But I'm just saying like different parts of the state care about different things, but we have common moral threats. And as Texans, there's things that are important. So we amplify the things that we're doing well. We amplify the things that we weren't able to get accomplished, and we do it in unison together. That was a really long way to say that to you. Yes, sir.
Or what you're saying is don't spend all of your time talking against Trump, but spend your time talking about what the Democratic Party is going to do that's positive.
I think you got to do a little bit of a mix of both, okay, to be honest with you. But what I'll say is we need to know what our lane is. So who here is an activist in the Democratic Party here? Like with the, okay, that's probably most folks. How many here are with like a nonpartisan club? Got a couple? Okay. So the nonpartisan clubs have a different objective than we do, right? Now, we may have some common morality here, but what our job is as the Democratic Party is going to be different than what they are. They're going to be working on things like issue advocacy and persuasion. We're going to be working on things like turning our Democrats out to vote and making our Democrats happy. Sometimes that means telling them what they're up against and what has been happening. But I think that you don't do a whole lot of that negative without pairing it with big, bold ideas. And that's what we as a party used to be known for. The party that we're not afraid to disrupt systems to help people who need it. We kind of got to get back there. So young people, when you're shocked that these young people, we were losing them, their turnout was pretty low. I think a lot of them chose to stay home because they didn't see those big, bold ideas that you as a young person probably were excited about and pushing. I mean, as you get older, you kind of lose some of that luster sometimes. But I remember being a wide-eyed 18-year-old so excited for Barack Obama and what we were going to do to change the world, right? And they don't have that right now. And like we have a responsibility to put candidates in place that are going to give that back. There's a whole lot of room for growth. As a state, we're one of the lowest turnouts in the country. I was in Laredo last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, and they printed me out a precinct list of what their turnout was. There were precincts plural, on that list where the turnout was around 13% in a presidential election. Okay. I mean, like that to me is where we as a party are failing. There's some messaging discussions to be had, but that is being out organized, and it's nothing beyond that. We should have been in those types of communities talking to folks. They would have probably been predominantly Spanish speaking, and have hire people from those communities to go and communicate who we are and what we stand for. And we haven't been doing that. Yes, sir.
I am from a county to the north of you, and I think sometimes we need to keep in perspective what Mr. Scudder is up against. He's been in office for 2 months. Give a guy a chance. He's got a lot he needs to do.
It's been a tough 60 days.
We had a fairly moribund party statewide. In this area, in the Hill Country, we have gradually over the years become very active and very proactive. And I think you need to congratulate your people in Kerr County, as well as us in the surrounding counties who have got together in a coalition so that we can have some influence. What Kendall's talked about some today is just preparing that groundwork again, but it has to be prepared for it to work, so that bringing together people so that we get training that is viable. I mean, we've had training in the past that is great, except the second sentence that the trainer comes up with is terms we've never heard of. Well, we just lost that for the afternoon. I can also say that when I first moved to the Hill Country from Austin into Fredericksburg, we were pulling 14%. We're now pulling 20% consistently. So we're making progress very slowly. If you look at your figures in Kerr County, you find the exact same thing. We are the little brother to Kerr County. We're the half brother because we're half as big. We have the same half turnout. We have the same percentages. And that's the way, if you look around the counties here in this red hill country, you're going to find the same dang thing. So we have to keep working at it to keep our 20%. And we get told we were being told by the Central, by Austin, if rural counties will just raise your amounts by 5%, 5%, oh please. If we can raise it by 2% and the urban counties do what they need to be doing with their turnout, we'll be fine. But we need to work as a partnership with them. It can't be rural versus urban, because those folks in the urban counties are trying to put food on their table as well.
Yeah, and
make that work.
And they have their own unique challenges too.
True.
I mean, this is a behemoth. Literally, I don't know if you saw all the news articles after I got elected, but it was regularly referred to in national media as the hardest job in American politics. And they call it that because it is. Texas is a beast. And we can either look at it and be intimidated and be defeated by it, or we can try to dissect it up, eat it one bite at a time, and try to figure out the best path forward to accomplish what we need to. I failed to mention we're actually actively doing trainings too. Yesterday, I did one in Lubbock. And the day before that, we did one in Amarillo. And so we're kind of going around and accomplishing those. I'm sure at some point in the fall, we'd love to come back to Hill Country. And we haven't been to Medina yet, haven't been to Kendall yet. And maybe that's a good opportunity for us to come out there and host some of those trainings. But they're just very 101 organizing. It's also challenging because you got people at different levels, right? Like there's some people in this room who clearly have just been tons of blood, sweat, and tears, and they're pros. They could probably cut their own turf. And then you got folks that are intimidated to knock on their first door. And so the different levels of training also has to be kind of taken into consideration.
Yeah, I don't know how to talk a point to people, like my relatives, when they tell me, when they want to talk a point, and I just need, to know what the hell I'm talking about and be able to,
Yeah. So like the messaging trainings is what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah, the Democrat is the party for the little people and the party for the working men and women of this country. Life is extensively and increasingly unaffordable. People are having a hard time putting food on the table, paying their rent, paying their bills, driving us forward. We're the party that's going to the table, fighting every single day to try to make life more affordable, make life easier for people, while the billionaire class in D.C. and in Austin are doing everything they can to keep their boots on our neck and gobble every single penny out of their pockets and hoard it for themselves. Working class people deserve someone sitting at the table, throwing down and fighting for them, and that's what the Democratic Party does.
Wow.
Okay. Yes, volunteer.
I will start posting that on my mail out. But listen to me. 1,000 subscribers is pretty good.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that great?
And here's how I'd like to kind of leave you here. I don't like to leave these things without giving kind of calls to actions and things that we can do. Okay. Number one, this may sound simple, but sometimes Democrats, it's not. Be nice to each other. Okay. Number one, that sounds simple, but I go all over the state and constantly see Democrats fighting each other, spending more energy being angry at each other than they are exteriorly. Understand that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have, and that energy is best spent trying to focus hostility towards where it was brewed. And that is outside of this camp. Number two, I would like for you to consider signing up to being a precinct chair. She only has 10 vacancies. There's enough people in this room to fill those depending on where you live. And if there's already a precinct chair where you live, you can reach out to that precinct chair or your county chair, connect them, and you can become what we at East Dallas call precinct organizers, because we started getting to a point where we filled them. And so we started doubling up. It's lonely work. Okay. I was county chair in Walker County, which is where we execute people in Huntsville. There are tough counties out there, and sometimes it can be very lonely doing that work. Sometimes having a buddy to do it with will help you get through it. So being a precinct organizer, if you already have a precinct chair, let's start building teams or working our precincts. If we do this in every precinct of the state and everybody works their precincts of the state, that doesn't mean we're going to win every precinct in the state, but it does mean that if every precinct in the state starts getting worked, we're going to reap large electoral benefits from that. Okay. So sign up on that volunteer piece. Number three, I am working to earn support back for the Texas Democratic Party. And I know that that is not going to come overnight. But I want to make sure people know that we are responsible stewards of the grassroots dollars that come in across this state. If throughout this process we're able to earn your support back, I hope you would consider becoming a monthly contributor of the state party and of your county party. This doesn't happen without resources, and trust me, I'm dancing on every table I can to get every dollar we can to try to hire as many folks as we can to help y'all in the field. We're getting there, and I feel good about where we're heading. The party was in the black for the first time last month, and we're gonna get there. It's gonna be all of us kind of working together. The last point that I want to make and think I want to request from you is don't let these chicken shit Republicans make you feel bad about who you are. Okay, you should be proud of being a Democrat in Texas. The Democrats, and when I think back on the greatest accomplishments of this country in the last 100 years, they were things that were delivered to you by Democrats. I think of the New Deal, where we had communities that didn't even have electricity, and big oil companies and billionaire energy experts all thought that we were not worth the dollars it would have taken to give us something as simple as electricity. But Democrats delivered on the New Deal, not just bringing electricity to every corner of this state and this country, but helping to alleviate poverty and lift people up out of the Great Depression. We're the party that saved the world during World War II. We're the party that delivered the Great Society, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, the Civil Rights Act. We're the party that cut poverty in this country, by the way, by 75%. That's how we got our reputation. Those two things of being the party that fights for the little people. We're the party that put a man on the moon. And we're the party that delivered the last balanced budget that this country has ever seen. But here's a fun fact about those things. It was not just Democrats that did that. It was Texas Democrats that did that. Texas Democrats. Sam Rayburn is who delivered you the New Deal and who saved this country in World War II. Lyndon Johnson is who gave you the Great Society. And Houston scientists are who put a man on the moon. And Lloyd Bentsen is who balanced this budget. When Texas Democrats have our shit together, we do some pretty great things for this country. But when we don't, the whole system is out of whack. This country is counting on us to get it back together. And a lot of people are counting on us to get this one right. It's not the time for us to feel like our teeth have gotten kicked into a point where we can't get up. We're the Weebles of Texas Democratic politics. We wobble, we don't fall down. We're back up, we're scrappy, our backs are against the wall, and we're fighting back for the working men and women of this country who for too long have had the billionaire class putting their boots on their necks and taking away any opportunities that they had to succeed while gobbling all the opportunities for themselves. Your kids deserve champions fighting for them the same way that these billionaires have these bootlicking Republicans fighting for them. That's why we're fighting to get Democrats elected in every corner of this state and all across this country to get things back on track. Texas Democrats built this state, and Democrats are going to fix it. Thank you all very much.